great pleasure to welcome Teresa Keast, who's been a very good friend to Leeds Lodge and indeed to Theosophy in general over the last few years. She's given many talks at the Lodge. Teresa is a yoga teacher, and she's also a great expert in this invisible body that we all have called the etheric body, which unknown to many people plays a vital role in our existence. Teresa is originally from New Zealand. She lives in Chester. She runs a yoga practice, and she has also 4 children to look after as well. That is, it is 4, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. So this afternoon, we're going to look at something which I think is really, really fascinating, another alternative way of ensuring well-being. And Teresa's going to look at healing through sound vibration. So Teresa, welcome. Thank you for being with us, and it's over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Lovely. So what I want to do today is give you a big, broad overview and specifically bringing the modern understanding in physics together with our esoteric ancient wisdom understanding. Because it's an exciting time, especially to do with sound and electromagnetic radiation, because the two are starting to say the same things, to agree, even if sometimes they still like having different terms for things. So I won't go too much into the physics, but it will help if I do give you some of the science, just so that you are up to date with where we're up to with that, and also where we will be going with that in the future. Right. So to fully understand healing through sound, we have to understand vibration. And in physics, there's a real challenge at the moment in the world of quantum physics and traditional physics, because there's challenges to our current world view. And in order to understand sound healing and in fact energy healing and esoteric healing, we have to change our current world view. And you might think, well, what does the world view have to do with very much? And yet you'll be surprised, because our current world view and focus on the paradigm that we get to understand the world through physics and through science actually determines our beliefs. It determines the way our society is structured. It determines our values. It determines our relationship to our planet, our relationship to each other. So when we change our worldview, we change our view on everything. And I believe that especially this pandemic is the beginning of a time where we are going to be asked to completely change the way that we see the world and the way that we live as a result of changing our values. So this is where, in terms of health and healing, we're also at a stage where we're starting to accept a lot of things that we didn't accept before as this world view slowly changes. So I see this as an exciting time. So the current worldview in science says that the universe is random. There's no underlying organizing framework. It's inevitably heading toward disorder, and it's not living. We're the first civilization ever to believe in a dead universe, one that is not living. This is the scientific point of view, remember, not the esoteric. And what we've done, and what has brought us tremendous technological advances, is that we have treated the universe and life and nature like a huge machine that we can disassemble and take apart and understand. And this has meant that in many areas we have gone deep into our understanding, and in some systems in nature this does work. But we haven't looked at it from a holistic viewpoint. So objects are seen as separated by empty space and inherently disconnected. So that's our current paradigm on which our worldview is built. But there's an emerging worldview, and you will recognize some of the concepts in this emerging worldview because it's the concepts that we embrace in the ancient wisdom teachings. And this says that the nature of reality offers a very practical perspective toward problem solving, and it's based on a universe that is abundant in its foundation, is oriented towards order and organization, is wholly interconnected and cooperative, and is filled with a fundamental network that permeates all matter and energy. And it has a natural feedback loop of interconnected self-awareness at all scales. So this is the emerging view amongst physicists, that the universe is an intelligent, living universe. And obviously this is causing a lot of conflict in the world of science, but hopefully a conflict that's from which is going to emerge a better worldview. And so I think this is exciting because this emerging worldview in science, you can see parallels a lot of our understandings from an esoteric point of view. So if we look at especially some of the wisdom teachings on sound and the universe and how the universe was created, we find that the idea that sound is created, or many creation stories have sound at their center. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, in the Gospel of John. So we have this idea, and this comes from the Vedic teachings, that pure consciousness is silent. So imagine for a moment a field of pure consciousness that's empty, but it's filled with the potential for anything. And in science, they call this the infinite potentiality, or the infinite field. And to experience itself, consciousness must produce contrast, duality, friction. And this is what creates sound. So if all that is silent, to experience itself, that friction, that sound is how the universe experiences itself, or how God comes to know thyself. And that sound is said to be the Om. Okay, so this is the original word, is the Om. Okay, the sound at the very foundation of creation. So in the Vedic teachings, they suggest the initial vibration of the Om emerges from the unmanifest and diversifies into all the different vibrations of the manifest universe. So in science, we have a concept of a Big Bang. In Vedic philosophy, they would say there was a big Om that created the universe. But it is not something that just happened, it is ongoing, constantly unfolding. And in actual fact, if that Om stopped, the universe would disappear. Okay, so it's conscious. So the Om, this sound of the Om, contains all of the mantras, all of the sounds, all of the vibrations of the whole universe. So you can see how science and our ancient wisdom teachings are starting to come together. So what we're starting to realize from our modern science is that everything in the universe is energy, vibrating at different frequencies. And that we live in a sea of different energies and frequencies of vibration. And sound has a vibrational frequency range that affects us. We don't just take sound in through our ears, although that is how we perceive sound, but sound affects our etheric energy body and our chakras. And as they link through into the glands and into the nervous system, sound vibration ultimately affects our physical, our emotional, mental, and spiritual health and development. And from a theosophical point of view, we can look at that everything is energy, vibrating at different frequencies. So everything that we can see and touch that feels solid is simply vibrating at a slower frequency. So it appears more matter, it appears more solid. But as we lift up through the frequencies and we come into energy, some people can see, they sense energy vibration through their eyes, and they can see etheric type energy. But as we move higher up from our personality and we go up into the realm of the higher self or the soul, we are no longer physical. We have just got energy at a different frequency, energy at a higher frequency. And this is why we talk about raising our vibration, increasing our consciousness. It's about increasing this vibrational frequency of our whole being. And so you could think of, when we talk about spiritualizing matter and bringing that spiritual energy down into matter, that we are bringing a higher vibrational energy down into the lower vibrational energy of matter. So if you start to view the world in terms of energy, it starts to make a lot of sense. And for example, there are now theories in science where they're saying, because in our model of cosmology from a scientific point of view, we have the force that holds everything together is gravity. So we've got all these different planets and suns and stars and solar systems all interacting with each other because of this force we call gravity, this attraction force. And we have had to create all sorts of mathematical constructs to explain. Our laws of gravity don't explain the way the universe works. So we've had to create dark energy and dark matter and black holes and things that help to explain the discrepancies. So there is emerging now a theory in science they call the electric universe theory. And this is the idea that instead of all the planets and the suns and everything being separate, that they're actually all connected electrically. And we have this huge connected electric, and think of electricity as a form of energy, this connected universe. And this helps to explain a lot of the anomalies that our current physics battles with. And so there's these emerging ideas, and you can see that that idea of an electric universe is coming much closer to our understanding of the etheric body and how energy works in terms of our chakras, in terms of how energy works when we are exchanging energy with other living beings, that everything is conscious and that everything is connected. So this is why it's exciting. So you could see from a sound vibration point of view that dis-ease is simply your body out of tune. So through sound healing, it sounds very simple, but we simply retune you. And when you have the optimum notes within your physical body, your body is able to self-heal. Now, I've got pages and pages of scientific information I could give you that's really exciting. And I'll give you some books you can, if you want to understand more and want to focus on this more. But one of the things they have found, all cells generate electric currents. So if you like, all cells generate electricity. And these in turn generate magnetic fields in the surrounding space. So they talk about all cells in our body as having a biomagnetic or an electromagnetic field. And this science is now able to measure the little electric fields and the electromagnetic fields in individual cells in our body. And it's like a Taussian field. And this magnetic field that they're talking about is what we see in diagrams of our etheric body. So this is where science is giving it a different name, but agreeing with these principles. So it suggests that we are electromagnetic beings bathed in an electromagnetic connected reality. And now that the science is saying in that space that they thought was an empty vacuum between all things, that 99.9% of our universe is made up of substance called plasma. And plasma is like a fourth, we have solids, we have liquids, and we have gases as states of matter, states that matter can be in. And they're talking about plasma as the fourth state of matter. And it's like a gas that can conduct electrical currents. And it seems to have lifelike qualities. So examples of plasma, plasma is what's given off by the sun. Plasma is what we see in the northern lights. Plasma is what's released with lightning strikes. Plasma is what's in your plasma TV, in your fluorescent light bulbs. So this is a gas that can conduct electricity. But see that quote that seems to have lifelike qualities, and science is grappling a little bit with this idea that consciousness might be involved here. And we know that everything is conscious, and I don't think it'll be very long before science comes to agree, and is already agreeing, that this plasma is a field of intelligence. So they talk about a human energy field as like bioplasma, and they can measure, there's all sorts of negative and positive particles in this field when we're in, and when we're in good health, they suggest there's a balance of negative and positive particles in this field. And the energy can become stuck in this bioplasma as a result of physical or emotional trauma. So this equates to or mirrors our understandings of the ancient wisdom teachings on the etheric body, that our blueprint, that our memories, that our mind, that our emotions, our traumas are all contained within these fields that surround our body. So we have an aura that's made up of the etheric energy. Then we have an astral or emotional body that surrounds our physical body. We have a mental, various mental bodies. And this field, this energy is how we are connected. So it starts to explain the way that we can be one, but individual and separate, so we can be connected but separate at the same time. So I am an individual. My body has its own parameters and boundaries where the matter is vibrating at a lower frequency and defines me. But because everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies, I'm also connected to all that is, and I'm connected to every other being that has an energy body. And so science is starting to agree. I found a beautiful quote, some work by Pythagoras and Plato. And this is way back, 400-500 years BC. And they suggested that the universe could be, they held that our understanding of the universe can be based upon harmonic principles correlated to geometric forms and musical ratios, especially indicating an underlying mathematical organizing framework that is very akin to some of the ideas we're starting to see in modern physics, that there is a mathematical basis to the universe. And of course, sound is a vibration that is transmitted in sound waves that we can measure. They have a certain wavelength, how high they are. They have a certain frequency, how many per minute. And we actually know that we think of sound as transmitted in a sound wave like this when we draw it in 2 dimensions. But sound is actually transmitted more in concentric bubbles. So if the source of the sound is in the minute, it goes out in bubbles of sound, concentric circles in all directions. What we do know is that sound travels faster through water than it does through air. And so whenever we in our body generate sound, so whether it's using mantras, the tone of your voice, humming, singing, laughing, it's like from that source of the sound, it reverberates out in fields of sound waves throughout all the structures in our body. So all we are affected by sound, every tissue in our body. They've actually found little receptors, almost like tuning forks on cells that pick up sound. Okay. Our cells are photoelectric. They can absorb light and pick up light vibrations. Because remember, if the whole universe is electromagnetic, if it's different vibrations of energy, light and sound are just picked up by different sense organs. And this is why sounds have colors and colors have sounds, and why light and sound is all energy. It just depends whether you're seeing it or you're hearing it or you're feeling it. Emoto, the Japanese scientist who did the beautiful work with crystals, finding that when water was infused with love, feelings of love, it created perfectly formed geometrical snowflake-like crystals. And when water was infused with hate and anger, the crystals, when it's frozen, were all haphazard. There was no uniformity and no order. And what he found is when water was exposed to certain classical music, it would create these beautiful geometric patterns. And you can buy a book where there's some classic pieces and he shows you the photographs of the different, I think the blue Danube and the things, you know, what the crystals look like, to see that the power of sound and sound vibration to affect matter. So when you sound a tuning fork, you create a holographic sound field. Okay, so what is a holographic sound field? So anything that's a hologram just means that it's all connected and every part of the whole has the blueprint or has the whole within it. So we're suggesting that we are holographic and the universe is holographic. And you could almost, I suppose, an esoteric way of understanding a hologram is if we understand the concept that God is everywhere, or spirit, however you define that concept, that every cell in our being everywhere is conscious and has God within it. This is the idea that science calls a hologram. So when you strike a tuning fork, it produces these complex data structures of pure frequency. So that just means a pure note that has information. And so when that pure note hits the biofield or the etheric body of a person, what they've found is that it can awaken cellular memories in various tissues that retune those tissues and potentially lead to a healing response. So it's like we all have our own vibration, and all of our tissues have their own vibration on all our cells. It's like our body is a beautiful symphony. Okay, and when we're in good health, everyone's in tune and playing at the right times and in the right order, and it's a wonderful, it's a miracle, really. Dis-ease is where someone's out of tune, or they haven't turned up, or they haven't tuned their instrument, or something's not quite right, something's out of balance. So by striking a pure note into the biofield, into the etheric body of a person, It works through something called harmonic resonance. And what it does, it's like retuning, it's like reminding those tissues of what their note for optimum health is. And then the tissues come back to that note of optimum health. And this is through harmonic resonance, is when a wave, when a sound, when you come near to a sound frequency vibration, you attune to it. Okay, so it's when a wave frequency attunes to the frequency of a vibration in contact with it. So I'll give you the best way to describe this as an example. If you've got two guitars in a room and you pluck the top string of one, the top string of the other one will vibrate because of harmonic resonance. Another example is if you have several clocks in a room, or you go into a clock shop, they'll all be ticking in time, and all the pendulums will be swinging in time because they've all come into harmonic resonance. We do this as people. It explains things like women's cycles coming into resonance when they all live in the same home or the same environment. Apparently, when they measure the heartbeat of people in a music auditorium, they all entrain, they all come into harmonic resonance, and they will all entrain to the music they're hearing. And this is the power of music to bring us together, to uplift and inspire. It unites through this idea of harmonic resonance. So I said every organ and every system in our body has a particular frequency and its own optimum frequency. And when everything is in tune, we're in something called coherence. When parts are out of tune, there's incoherence. Now, coherence means that the frequencies are ordered, they're consistent, they're clear, and they're in phase. So as one wave goes up, the other goes up like this in a beautiful dance of harmony. So this is going to explain a little bit more how sound healing works. I just want to digress for a moment and talk about some of the research that the Heart Math Institute do that relates to our understanding of the heart chakra from an esoteric point of view, but it's also science is talking the same language. So what they've found is that we can come into something called heart coherence. So they can measure the electromagnetic field, this big Taussian field that emanates from our heart. Okay, and they talk about it emanating from our physical heart, but really it's emanating from our etheric or our heart chakra. And this electromagnetic field that comes out from your heart affects every single cell in your body. And when you are in the higher heart qualities, when you lift up into those Buddhic qualities of unconditional love, of gratitude, of forgiveness, of care, of compassion, some of the really higher heart qualities, they find that the heart comes into coherence, a beautiful ordered frequency that affects every cell in the body and brings the whole body into a harmonic resonance with that high vibrational energy or high vibrational frequency of the heart. So you could think of your heart as like the conductor in the orchestra or the symphony of your body. And we used to think that the brain was the conductor, but they're now finding that no, actually the heart is the first, brings in the first messages and how we're responding to the world and relays that information to the brain. So when we come into heart coherence, we actually come into a coherence between our brainwave frequencies and our heart frequencies. And this affects every cell in the body to the point that they have found that when you are in positive heart coherence, like when you're feeling this love, gratitude, those high Buddhic qualities, that it can turn on DNA in your cells that's conducive to health and turn off DNA that's not conducive to health. So you are not your DNA, you are not a martyr to your genetics. It depends on your state of being. Now, we know that through yoga and through meditation and through using our discriminative mind, we can lift up out of lower, more base negative emotions, because the converse works. When our heart is fearful, when we're feeling uncertainty and doubt, this has a negative effect on every cell in our body. Okay, through that harmonic resonance, it throws off the optimum frequency for the cells and tissues, and eventually will lead to dis-ease in the physical body. And so when we come into this heart coherence, we bring the whole of our being into a really positive state. It's like setting the heart note, retunes the body for health. And so from our theosophical understanding, we come to understand that because we know and understand about consciousness, we can start to choose our state of being. So when we find ourselves in our lower mind and when we find ourselves attached and pulled into our emotions in the astral body and pulled into those negative states of being, we can choose to step back from that, to step up into the higher vibrations. And this is where something like a practice of meditation gives us that capacity to step back from an attachment to our emotional desire nature, to step up into the higher mind and to witness what's going on and to know that it's not doing our health any good. And through an understanding of this sound vibration, to know that we need to do whatever it takes to bring our heart back into that coherent vibration, because that will bring our whole body back into a state of optimum health. And so you can see that this suddenly the possibilities for healing in terms of the chakras, in terms of vibrational frequencies, becomes enormous. So there are many people starting to work in this area, and if you go on YouTube, there's so much that you can explore. So many people using pure acoustic tones from Tibetan singing bowls or crystal bowls that can bring us back into coherence. For example, I have a singing bowl here, and this one is tuned to a heart note. And I have been amazed the number of times just being in the vibration of the singing bowl changes your state of being. Okay, so if I just play this for you for a moment. And just notice where it hits your body. And this is ancient wisdom. We've known about the use of sound in healing long before it became something we understood in science. We've also got, now that we start to understand that we are vibrational beings, that we are energetic vibrational beings, we are starting to introduce a lot of electromagnetic radiation into our environment. I think I read that the amount of electromagnetic radiation in our homes is something, in the last 30 years, it's increased 1 million times or something. And of course, everything that's giving off electromagnetic radiation, everything that is electrical, is affecting our vibration. Okay, and this is where we can start to understand things like crystals that change vibration. We can start to bring in things like using crystals, using sound in our home, using ways to counteract those negative effects. And it's a whole nother discussion to look at the potential negative effects of moving from 4G to 5G in terms of our communication networks. There's many studies and many scientists and many doctors who are very concerned about the effects energetically, and I am concerned about the effects of 5G on our etheric body, because we are just we're not designed to cope with that sort of bombardment of energy into every cell of our being, and I believe it will cause detrimental effects. We need to look at that. I don't want to focus on that too much, but I want to move to the idea that each of the chakras has its own note, its own vibrational frequency, and its own color. And you can use tuning forks over the chakras to bring them back into balance. Okay, and I've mentioned Eileen McCusick, and if you want to, this book, Tuning the Human Biofield, is very good for explaining a lot of this physics, a lot of the change, and explaining sound vibrational healing. And what she has done is a combination of scientific understanding, and I think she's quite intuitive and has a spiritual background. And what she has done is she has mapped the human body, because she says that the human biofield goes out for 5 feet on either side of us, and 3 feet above our head and 3 feet below our feet. And that our recent times is the etheric body around us, and she can map a field right out to when we were born in this lifetime. And by using tuning forks, she comes through and sort of, I suppose, she works in this field, and she can feel the incoherence or the dissonance in the tuning fork when there's some blockage in the energy in a person's aura. Okay, and the tuning fork can be used to unblock and retune. And she has had people, she's been right out in their energy field, and she does something called combing their energy field. And she's had, you know, she's mapped out where different experiences are, and she's had a lot of success with healing people, both with physical ailments, but also a lot of emotional trauma. She's gone back and found things that are stuck in the energy field. And this is something that we understand from the ancient wisdom teachings, and something that increasingly we will learn to work with. And I believe that in the future, we won't just use things like counseling and psychoanalysis and the mind to heal the blockages in our energy field, but we will actually physically be able to use sound and energy vibration working with that conscious understanding of the mind. And so healing will be quite a new science and quite profound. The other thing to realize is that tuning forks and sound, using singing bowls and other uses of sound, can unblock meridians. So if you understand our etheric body is like an energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates our physical body at the chakras, and then interweaving all through our physical body is a subtle energy body of lines of energy we call meridians. And this is the basis of Chinese medicine. It's also the basis of Ayurvedic medicine. And the idea is that when the prana, or the energy, and Eileen goes so far as to say, well, maybe prana, maybe subtle energy and electromagnetic energy are the same thing. So when the prana flow is blocked, we eventually get a manifestation in the physical body. And in Alice Bailey's teachings on esoteric healing, she says that all dis-ease is a lack of soul expression in the physical, in the personality vehicle. And it's most often in the astral, in the emotional body. So there's blockages, things are not flowing. The soul is not able to express, have full expression through the personality because of something that hasn't been dealt with, some energy that's still in our aura. And so the capacity to work in this way in terms of healing becomes very exciting. We are wired to be sensitive to sound. Okay, it's one of the first senses to develop in the womb and one of the last senses to go when we die. The first sound that we are entrained to, or we develop a harmonic resonance to, is our mother's heartbeat. And this is why anyone who's had small babies will know that if you make the noise of a mother's heartbeat, the baby calms down. Okay, because we are wired to be sensitive to sound. I said before, our cells have antennae like receptors that act like tuning forks. And these actually affect our physiology. So for example, the way the electromagnetic radiation in our homes affects us, it actually affects some calcium channels and a whole series of cascade of events in our body that science is now recognizing. We already use sound in healing. There's infrasonic sounds used to break up kidney stones. Anyone who's ever twisted their ankle will have had ultrasound that helps promote healing, brings blood supply and decreases swelling to the area. We use ultrasound to diagnose and scan. And we're starting to use it for non-invasive surgery for tumors and growths. Eventually we will use more and more, we will use light and we will use sound as surgery. And this is written about, I can't remember which of the Bailey books, it might have been in Esoteric Healing, but basically saying that it's quite primitive to physically be surgeons and go in and cut up the physical body and cut out the bits that are broken and put in new bits or repair. That's quite a mechanistic way of understanding the body. It's not understanding the body as a whole and that the body has this life force energy, this etheric body. And in time, we will start to use sound as surgery and light, as we're already using lasers as a form of light surgery. And eventually we won't do physical surgery at all. And it'll be looked back upon as something that happened in the Dark Ages, a bit like we look back upon leeches and things like that. So we are moving in that direction. And as our technology and our understanding of electricity grows in this electromagnetic field, so the advances will come thick and fast. We already use music therapy to treat post-traumatic stress disorder. We use it to treat Alzheimer's. It's very effective with autism, dementia, and stroke, and even for changing the vibration, calming down prisoners. We're starting to understand this idea that music affects us on much more profound than just through our ears. Music comes into our etheric body. Music goes into every cell in our body. They use music to promote recovery post-surgery and for end-of-life care. And in the future, it's written in one of the Bailey books that we will be given specific mantras to aid the transition of death. And that we're not quite ready for these, but as we change our attitude to death and as we start to see it as a celebration, as a transition, as we embrace this idea of our immortality of the soul, death will almost become like we celebrate a birthday. Your death will be celebrated in the same way, and there will be mantras that we can help that soul transition. Because one of the one of the ways that many people work on the astral plane is in helping souls. When a soul first dies, they are in such a confused, distressed state because they don't know what's happening to them. And how a person dies and how the people around them are when they die can really change that experience for them. And so we will progress in this way to helping them and being definitely with them. Music's used to manage pain, anxiety, stress, and basically other emotional issues. You know yourself that certain music changes your mood. If you put on a sad song, you'll feel sad, or maybe it'll lift you. There's certain music, you know, if I'm starting to get down and I put on certain music, I can't stay down when that music's playing because it's affecting, it's coming into every part of me. It's coming into my emotional body. There's a lot of wonderful things on YouTube now using tonal frequencies in health and healing. For example, 432 hertz is said to be the frequency of the Aum, and it brings deep healing of your mind and your body, feelings of peace, and can help release emotional blockages. And this is the sound inherent in nature. It promotes delta brainwave state, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, and helps you to sleep. 528 hertz, which I've got a tuning fork here, that's 528, and this is said to be the miracle tone, or the love frequency that boosts your energy, reduces stress and anxiety, transforms and repairs DNA. So this sound goes right down to the physical level. So I'll give you a listen to 528. If you can hear it. Might be too subtle. But what you can do, and I have used this, let me just show you another share. I think it's this one. No, sorry. I've lost it. If you go on YouTube, you can just look up different frequencies, and there's lots of music that just plays at certain frequencies. And if I'm feeling really tired, I would just lie on my bed with headphones on and just tune into one of these, especially 528 is a good one during the day. And honestly, in about quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, I just let it, and you don't just listen with your ears, you listen with your whole being, and you just let it come into your whole being, and it takes you into a beautiful, deep place like you go in meditation. And within 15, 20 minutes, I will be completely recharged as if it's the beginning of the day and I have plenty of energy. So some people use these frequencies for helping them to concentrate and study. Some people who can't sleep use them. And then there's another technology called binaural beats. And this is where they'll put in two slightly out of resonant beats, and your brain, and you will entrain, or you will come into a resonance with the beat in the center. And this is a way that they can affect, it can bring you into different brainwave states. So for example, delta brainwaves at quite a low frequency are the brain waves that are the waves that we can measure coming off from our brain when we're in deep sleep. And these are needed for renewal and healing. So if you don't get a really deep sleep, you don't get the renewal that you get with the delta waves. Increasingly, we're using theta waves that are in a range of 3 to 8 hertz. And just as an aside here, there's something called the Schumann resonance. And this is a resonance that they've found is the frequency that the Earth resonates. Okay, so when they measure the sort of overall frequency of our planet, I think it's about 7.38 hertz. And this Schumann resonance, what they find is when we go and spend time in nature, or when we connect with the earth, it brings us into resonance or entrainment, harmonic resonance with the Schumann resonance, and that invokes the theta brainwave state in us. And this is one of the reasons that going out and connecting with nature is so healing for us, because we come into tune with the vibration of nature. And you will know this if you have sat on a beach and watched a sunset or a sunrise, if you have just sat in nature and listened to the birds, not with headphones on, not thinking about anything else, but totally in the moment, mindful and aware, just being in that vibration, it is profoundly healing. And I think this is also why when we're not very well, we intuitively want to be away from other people, away from erratic sounds, away from busy road noise, away from cities, away from the busy sounds, and we want to retreat somewhere peaceful, because we know inherently that that peace in nature is healing. And I'm going to talk in a moment about this resonant om that we can tune into that sits behind all sound. But these theta waves, this is the state you go into in a deep relaxation in, say, a yoga class. The theta brainwave state, usually we just spend a couple moments in it as we're falling asleep. It's that state between being fully conscious and fully unconscious, that sort of state you hover in as you're falling asleep. It's also, if you're in deep meditation, it's the state that your brain is in. And this is profoundly healing and restoring for the brain and the nervous system. So especially people who suffer with stress, who can't sleep, we find that if we can induce a longer theta brainwave state, the other thing that we find is it helps with the intuition, insight and awareness. So it seems to, if we spend more time, and this is where meditation is beautifully working on our health, it seems to raise our overall vibration when we spend time. And this is why I say to people in my yoga classes, you know, they say, how can a 120-minute relaxation once a week make such a difference to my health? And the reason it does is because for that 20 minutes, I'm working to keep them in a theta brainwave state. And again, you can tune into music on YouTube or other channels that will keep you, you can just do a deep relaxation, it'll keep you in a theta brainwave state. Then the alpha waves, these are dominant when we're quietly creative flowing thoughts, some meditative creative states. We're feeling positive, calm and relaxed, but we are alert. So we're more alert than when we're in a theta brainwave state. So this is the other reason I say to people in the relaxation, don't fall asleep. Stay awake, but let your body be deeply relaxed, and then you can stay in this state. So beta waves with the higher frequency, we have a normal, this is our normal waking state. Beta is a fast activity when we're alert, attentive, when we're engaged in problem solving, judgments, decision making, or any kind of focused mental activity. When we start getting up toward the higher beta waves, we're starting to get a stress response. So we get nervousness and irritability and anger. And this is where people find they get brain fog or brain freezes and they can't access their memory. They've also done studies finding that people that spend a lot of time in a theta brainwave state seem to have enhanced capacities in terms of super learning, in terms of memory and things like this. So there's a lot of research in this area, all working on understanding what's going on in terms of this interface between our energy body, our etheric body, and our physical. The really high, when you go right above, you can get gamma waves produced when you're involved in intense concentration. So things like chanting, has a very positive effect on your health. It's bringing your heart into coherence. It's bringing your whole being into a beautiful coherence. And it creates these heightened states of awareness. It's raising your vibration, if you like, up toward the higher self, the higher vibration of your soul. Mantras are used and often they're Sanskrit. So the sounding of each syllable is very important, that you get the sound right. And they are used to enhance spiritual growth. And they often are working on the throat chakra, on opening and enlivening and balancing the throat chakra, and in the connection of the heart with the throat, so that the heart can be expressed through the word. And this is, so remember, sound, you think of the words we use, the words we use are only a small part of the communication. How we say those, what the energy is behind those words, gives out a vibration. And I read something the other day that said, once a word uttered, it carries on forever. It never stops vibrating. And so this concept of being harmless with our words, you know, harmlessness. And this is really, as more and more people open the heart chakra, increasingly humanity is, and I believe this virus is working to, en masse, really open the heart and starting to open the throat chakra in many people. This idea of harmlessness, of speaking truth. Because truth has its own vibration, and truth is a vibration that we can resonate with and we can recognize, because it is one of the qualities of our soul. So we say that 3 qualities of the soul are truth, beauty, and goodness. And so that is why we can recognize these inherently, because we recognize the vibration. And so sometimes a truth spoken hits us here. We just know that to be true. It speaks to us with a truth that we can't necessarily explain with our lower mind. It's suggested in deep meditation, you can go so deep, and I have experienced this myself, where you are aware of a vibration, or I wouldn't even call it a sound, but you become aware of the place from where all sound comes and where all sound returns. And this is creation. And this is what's spoken of as the sound of silence. So sound really is a creative bridge between the material world of matter and more spiritual dimensions. It's like a gateway to bring those higher energies down into our being. And for example, you know, we will use it to ease the transition of death. We will use it more in healing. It'll become complementary and more mainstream. We will understand that it unblocks the channels within the different bodies, within our etheric body, within our emotional and lower mental. It's written about that in Atlantis and Egypt and earlier civilizations, they'd got to an understanding of sound and frequency vibration, so that they could actually move physical objects with sound. So this understanding that everything is energy, just vibrating at different frequencies. So if you tune into a certain frequency, you can almost dematter something and just move it. And it suggested things like the pyramids and Stonehenge and stuff may have been moved into place using specific mantras, groups of people coming into a resonance and creating power with sound. And we'll reactivate this ability in the future. It's suggested that in the coming golden age, when we're through this current dark age, when we've transitioned into the next phase, and certainly the next root race, we're going to see a huge renaissance in music creation. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a hint of that in the ways that people are starting to create with sound already. So just 5 minutes or so, I want to broaden the concept of sound vibration and think of it whenever we come into a resonance, we impose a rhythm in our physical vehicle, in our etheric vehicle. But whenever we impose a rhythm in our life, we call it discipline. And this is really what discipline is. And a ritual is a regular rhythm. Our soul actually entrains the personality through a ritual or the imposition of a regular rhythm. So you could almost think of your personality as vibrating at a certain vibration. As it becomes increasingly integrated and coordinated, the different parts of you are vibrating at the same rhythm. That conductor is bringing the symphony into line. Then the rhythm of the soul is able to entrain, is able to bring the personality into a harmonic resonance with the soul. And we would describe this as a soul-infused personality in Theosophy. And this is really as the seventh ray of magic through ceremonial order comes in more with the age of Aquarius, this is augmenting, this is facilitating our understanding, not just of sound and sound healing, but of light and electricity and all of these things that are a rhythm and an order. No group work is possible. When we do group meditations, when we do any kind of work in a group, we've got to have some form of ritual or we've got to develop a coherence or a harmonic resonance within the group. And that often comes through the intention of the heart for that group to be effective. And because Aquarius is the age of group consciousness, I believe this is why we're increasingly becoming aware of sound and sound healing. The seventh ray brings in an understanding of energy and subtle energy and a realization that one of our jobs here, one of our major tasks is to raise our vibrational energy, to tune into the heart and mind of God. This is my will be thy will, our part in the greater plan and our unique spiritual path. We find our note. So music and sound are the language of the universe. They're a universal language because they cross all language barriers. And they express the harmony that's inherent in the universe, that harmony and that intelligence and that interconnectedness that science is starting to embrace, that we know in Theosophy does define our universe. So we need to realize the power of our voice. And you think of some of the most incredible people in history who have changed our world, have been fantastic orators. I mean, Hitler's power was partly in his ability to move a whole nation in the way that he spoke, with the charisma of his energy in a negative way. But you can think of someone like Martin Luther King. You can think of the power of Kennedy's speech. And so we need to understand the power of the word, but not just the word, but the intent, the heart vibrational energy that's coming through the throat, the intention behind the words. And this is why someone can say, yeah, I'm fine. And you're like, no, you're not. I'm fine. You're not. I'm fine. No, you're not. And we know they're not fine because we're picking up on the truth and integrity, because integrity is when we resonate, when all parts of us are coming into one frequency. Okay, so we're starting to resonate with our optimal frequency, and this brings beautiful physical health. It brings incredible vitality because it's the flow of prana, it's the flow of that life force energy. And as we move into this higher frequency, so we start to sound our soul note, and each and every one of us has a soul note, and the universal symphony needs every single note, and that's our job. Okay, we come into our resonance with our personality and entrain to our soul's vibration and sound our soul's note. So sound vibrational healing whenever there is dis-ease in your mind, in your emotions, in your body, something's out of tune. And that's our responsibility, to go and find out what's out of tune and how to get back into tune, so that we can sound our soul note, because the world desperately needs soul notes at the moment, especially. And we need that collectively to move through this transition we're in to where we need to be. So that's me. I've covered a lot there, and I could have covered a whole lot more, but I think that's giving you an overview without going too much into the physics, and giving you a taste of how you use sound for healing on all levels of your being. So what I like to do now is open up to any questions. And if people want to just indicate and maybe unmute, and they can ask me a question, or if you don't want to do it that way, you can pop a question in the chat. And again, not just questions, if you've got anything to add, if you've got anything that popped into your mind as I was speaking, because that will help us all to understand this much better.
Perhaps if I could kick off, Teresa, and say what a truly fascinating talk that was. I mean, that was one of the most comprehensively interesting talks I've heard in a long, long time. As someone who listens to a lot of music and who plays music, I was particularly interested in the fact that you mentioned that the heart corresponds to 594 hertz, and it's the chord of D. And this is a chord that I love to play. And it does actually have an effect on the body. And also, just playing a guitar or listening to music, it really does lift your mood. It can transform your mood within a few minutes. I mean, try listening to, as you say, certain types of music, like a really, rock and roll song or a Beethoven symphony, and they all have completely different effects upon you. So thanks for your talk anyway, and I'm sure there are probably more intelligent questions than that from other members of the audience. So please feel free to ask your questions to Teresa.
Can I go first?
Go.
Okay. I've got two questions, if possible. You did say that the blueprints and the memories are contained within the higher fields, like the aura and the astral. And I was wondering if you have more specific things, like which particular level of our being our memories kept and the blueprints for our being. That's one question. The second one is to do with the sort of music that we listen to. I mean, we know, as you say, that classical music can have this beautiful effect upon crystals and babies in the womb and things like that. And the 20th century took a very different direction. There was a lot of discordant atonal music in classical field. And also there was the great development of jazz. I was wondering what you felt about these. I mean, I love jazz. It really excites me. It does a lot to my body. And yet I was wondering, I mean, I have read that some people find that it is actually harmful from the sort of perspectives that you're talking about, the effect of keeping us out of harmony because it has these discordant things and doesn't make us resonate. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about those two things.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm going to answer your second question first. In terms of that discordant energy of jazz, remember, to heal, you sometimes need to shake things up. So I would say people who love jazz, listen to jazz. If you really don't like jazz, don't listen to jazz, because we have an inherent sort of intuitive sense of what we need. And it might be that some days you need jazz to stir things up, to bring up what needs healing so that you can heal it. And it might, and this is why I think sometimes people listen to things like heavy metal. They need that kind of vibration to get into the healing, because something peaceful and floaty and melodic is just not going to cut it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I feel that relates to the time of day as well. I mean, I tend to listen to classical in the morning and jazz in the evening, as if that seems to have some kind of
Well, that would relate definitely to, I mean, I didn't talk about circadian rhythms, but we have rhythms that are naturally inherent in our body to do with being awake and asleep, and to do with the melatonin and the cortisol and things in our body. And this is why probably heavy metal late at night is not conducive to good sleep. But it you know, if you're intuitive, and you I don't know, I listen to what I feel like, and as you do that, you build up a relationship between your body and music, and that's a heightened awareness. And that's, I would say, go with that. So I wouldn't stop listening to your jazz, but if you're not in the mood for it, don't. And in terms of the memory, my understanding is, you know, we have our etheric body that interpenetrates our physical body at the chakras, and then meets the physical body in our glands. So each chakra has a gland associated with it, and the etheric body works with the nervous system as well. And then we have an emotional and astral body. Mm-hmm. And this is interweaved, you know, these are not separate like we draw the diagram, but the mental or our mind is in the aura. And this is why we have the capacity to hook into universal mind. In terms of our memory, my understanding is that as you raise your vibration so that you can tune into higher aspects of memory, and that's not just memory from this lifetime. Okay, you get people when they're in a trance state and someone is doing regression therapy and going into past life memories. They're really just accessing memories that are in the aura. Some people would say they're in the subconscious mind. I'm never quite sure how the subconscious mind and the aura work. I haven't worked that one out yet, but I know myself, I can flip into past lives without going to a regression person now. And it's something to do with being able through years of meditation to raise your vibration. And I know that they're finding that people who do that heart, like there's a heart coherence. In fact, if you have a look on my website, there's a 4-minute little meditation where I take you into how to come into heart coherence. And I could do it today if you want me to. And this heart coherence, when people are in a regular state of heart coherence, they have heightened learning and memory capabilities, almost starting to move into superhuman capabilities. And I think we're only just, we have no idea what we're capable of, and we're only really just getting into that. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. So would you say that memories are stored in the higher self or the higher mind rather than the lower personality?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else has a thought on that one. I know that you access a lot of memories through the emotional body, don't you? Because a memory will be triggered by emotional events. But things like music, you know that a song that played when you went out with your first boyfriend or girlfriend just triggers those memories. That song comes on the radio and you're back there. Or, do you know what I mean? So I'm not totally sure. I think science and is still working on memory. We're not totally sure. But of course, as we come to understand memory, we will also come to understand things like memory loss. Or not just memory loss, because memory loss is not so much a loss of the information, it's a loss of being able to retrieve it. And there's a lot of research in terms of healing, in terms of vibrational, the healing effect of things like herbs, different substances, different vitamins and things that can make a difference to memory.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, go for it. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Teresa. I was just going to say in Shakespeare's sonnets, he uses the iambic pentameter which I believe is the same coherence as within the heart.
Yes.
There was a law just passed in Scotland where parents are forbidden to smack their children. But in my experience, it's the vibration of the voices that you hear when you're a child that I think have a more longer detrimental effect than actual physical smacking.
I would agree. I think, and this is my personal opinion, and having had 4 children and having been a single mum through 4, and 2 of them are teenagers with mock GCSEs next week and horrible at the moment. The power of emotion or words to wound, I believe, sometimes is far greater and has a far greater impact than, if a child's going to put their hand in the fire and you smack their hand, you smack it quite hard. It's better than them burning their hand, and they will learn not to put their hand in the fire. So sometimes it's needed, but yeah, the power of, the energy behind our words. So that words, the energy that comes with them comes into us. Words come into our being. So when someone speaks to you, that energy is coming into you. And this is why some people will drain your energy. They'll start speaking and you're like, oh. And other people, they start speaking to you and you're like really getting uplifted and ideas are flowing. They've taken you into their alpha brainwave state, and then you start buzzing with ideas and they start buzzing with ideas, and you both build to something that you could never have got to on your own. So we know the power of this energy interchange between people, but we can't close ourselves down into a bubble, because we're energetic beings. We are more wavicular than particular, if you were looking at it from a physics point of view, or we are spiritual beings. We just have these bodies that vibrate at a lower frequency that we have to try and cope with. And
that's right.
Yeah. And so what's behind your words is probably even more important than your words. If you say to your dog, "You're a really, really nasty dog." "Oh, you're a nasty dog." They'll wag their tail, because they're not listening to the words you're saying. They're listening to the vibration behind the words.
Yeah.
So we have to be responsible with our words. A really beautiful something that I repeat daily: I will be impeccable with my word. And that's not just impeccable with the words I use, but impeccable with the intention, that comes from the heart. And that's lifting up above the diaphragm into the higher centers. I'll be impeccable with my word. So, if those words, because we will eventually have to get to a stage when we're really spiritually advanced, where we're impeccable with our thoughts. They are harmless. Our words are harmless. Our intentions are harmless. And our actions are harmless.
If I can just say, that's why EastEnders should be banned.
Agreed.
Because the vibration is so aggressive in terms of words.
And this is often why, as you progress spiritually, you will naturally pull away from vibrations you don't like, that don't resonate with you anymore, that throw you out of balance. And you will seek vibrations that bring you into peace and bring you into coherence and bring you into that higher state of being, because that's our responsibility, is to keep our vibration high.
Claire, I think you had a question. Would you like to go next, Claire?
Oh, yes, I would. I expect Teresa knows of soundtravels.co.uk, where there's a big group of practitioners with tuning forks and Tibetan bowls. You do know. Can I bring our lovely Frank Perry of Tibetan bowls, the Himalayan Sound Revelation, and it's a complete singing book bowl. You do know of Frank Perry? Yes. Well, I won't go on then. It's a massive book and he covers so much.
Well, I think if, the idea of this talk is to spark your curiosity.
Yes,
So
and this,
in an hour, I can't cover this sort of subject.
No.
Impossible.
but
If I can spark your curiosity to go and explore, definitely.
thank you, Teresa.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Just
Can
a
I?
quick.
Can I?
Oh, two.
David Perry. Can I ask a question?
Yes, David, and then we'll take Jennifer after you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks.
Teresa,
Yes.
I totally agree with what Tim said just at the end of the lecture. It's been an absolutely superb lecture. I've really found it fascinating. And as a professional musician for most of my life, I had a 6-foot sheet my grand piano, and the notes used to resonate in hertz through the atmosphere and also through the wood frame of the piano itself. It seemed to be alive. I've had to sell that piano and downsize to a smaller house, and I've got an electric piano, and
Wow.
to me it seems lifeless and dead. Will I gain benefit from the electronic hertz produced out of the electric piano
You'll
and
still,
become less disenchanted with it?
you'll still get benefit. I think the living wood was enhancing and the water in the wood. Remember I said that sound travels quicker through water. That's why sound travels through all the fluids in our body. And we're 70% fluid. So this is why we don't just hear sound with our ears. It travels in our physical body in that way. But the you will still get benefit. But, you know, maybe, and this would be why a lot of people, you know, you think a guitar is wooden, flute is wooden, any instruments that are made from natural substances, I think resonate differently. Definitely. Yeah. There's still benefit though, but maybe buy yourself a wooden flute.
Good idea, yeah. Or a guitar.
Do that.
A guitar. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got a
Okay,
guitar.
Jennifer, would you like to go next, Jennifer?
Yes, okay. I'll try to be concise. I tend to wander off a bit sometimes. I actually listened to a discussion last week, a short discussion of some scientist professors. They were talking about cancer that caused, you know, a lot of people have gone through the cancer, had cancers, and now rather than give them radiation where you're destroying the immune system, etc., the treatment we're giving people at the moment is too late, and it's not necessary, and it's painful, and it's frightening. That's what my point of view. So what they're doing is actually, you know, studying individuals before, you know, when they're young, or do more gene sort of research and looking into the person more so. When do you think, you know, we would be up and running for that? Because the NHS, I mean, they're very good. I'm not knocking them, but for emergency treatments, they're fine. But they're just not on the road of this healing, you know, holistic healing, or using our own healing capabilities, which is a lot more positive than what we have at the moment.
Well, this is why what we really need is a change in our worldview, because that will filter down through everything. But no, you're right. There is a lot. There's research going on at the moment. They can already use sound to shrink small tumors. And using sound vibration. I mean, I've watched videos on YouTube where doctors working with their mind, okay, because energy is thought is energy, with a positive intention for the woman's health, for the highest for her, and you have watched an ultrasound as her tumor shrinks. You know, this is the area that we will move into in the future. I think it's a way off until we change our paradigm, until we become cooperative, until we have this more universal idea of that we are unified in some way, that there are forces that connect us. You know, science is talking about bioplasma, and it's coming. It is coming. But I would agree. I mean, there are many studies in terms of sound and healing and cancer, because really
Yes,
it's the DNA out of tune, isn't it?
of course,
It's crazy. It's almost got too much life force energy and it's going multiply, multiply, multiply. So let's bring it back to resonating with its optimum frequency.
Yeah, there has to be more study in this area, more like the NHS, they have so much money to spend, they have to spend it in this area. That's not a diagnosis, you know, the prognosis is out of sync with reality because of the bureaucracy and the sort of money making, you know, to get money, they have to do it this way, which is crazy. You know, I don't use it. I can't be bothered, you know.
But we're no longer in a worldview of scarcity where we have to compete and fight for resources.
Yeah.
When we're in a worldview where there's plenty for all and we cooperate and distribute resources for the good of all, when we shift, then there will be sharing all over the world. Scientists, instead of competing for research funds, they'll be sharing their ideas and working together, and I'll do this bit and you do this bit and together. Do you know what I mean? That's the paradigm shift.
Yeah, we hope.
I just want to answer a couple of questions that were in the chat. One was about, how do you know what Tibetan singing bowl? If you want to get one, how do you know what one? They speak to you. They speak to you. So all I would say is, you go into a shop that has them, and you can play them, or you can just, for me, this bowl was over the other side of the shop and it was just screaming at me, I'm the one for you. And I went, and
that's nice.
So someone was asking, it's intuitive. You could do lots of research about which Tibetan bowl, which crystal bowl, but that's coming in through the lower mind. If you really want to get the one that resonates with your soul, with your higher self, and lifts your vibration, you want to choose it intuitively. So maybe you would go into a very relaxed state and make sure you're peaceful and calm, or have just meditated before you chose. So you can't really buy a Tibetan singing bowl online unless you're extremely intuitive. The other thing that someone asked was the same with tuning forks. That book that I recommended, Tuning the Human Biofield, she goes into various tuning forks you can use. You can buy a range of tuning forks for the different chakras. You can buy ones on different scales. There's some people say this is better. I have one, it's here somewhere. I have one that's supposed to be tuned to the Om, and I do, oh, here it is. And I do use this one quite a lot, just because I love it. And it is tuned to 136.1 hertz. Okay. And sometimes, because I do Reiki healing, I will just, someone's, you know, you can just use it over the body. This one is really good around the head. It will clear all sorts. And so I suppose, because I'm quite intuitive, I tend to work intuitively, but you can research it and find which tuning forks. And the other thing that someone asked was the heart coherence exercise. If you go on my website, which is Teresa, actually let me put it in the chat, because you can download the MP3 and
That's it.
let me just have to work out how to do this. And like I say, you can learn to bring your heart into coherence. It's like a little meditation visualization where really you're focusing on the heart. You actually touch this physical part of your body, and you need to bring yourself into true coherence. You need to spend about 4 minutes in a state where you are focused on either gratitude, So all your blessings, you're just focused, you're just letting all the blessings in your life flow through you, or on care, what you really care about, or on compassion. So those three seem to be the ones that bring you into appreciation, into heart coherence, and you just spend time. And there are exercises you can do to go deeper into that heart coherence and use it in an intuitive way to ask questions of your higher self. So but I'll just put, I'm pretty sure if you go onto my website, I think it's under meditation.
What's the website?
It's our website.
I'm just going to put it on the chat. So it's Teresa for Yoga.
Teresa for Yoga.
I want that to go to everyone. So it's Teresa, Teresa, for the number 4, yoga.co.uk. And there's all sorts of resources on there. You can download a 20-minute healing white light relaxation. You can download a guided inner peace meditation. You can download this heart coherence. There's all sorts of videos. I have a YouTube channel. If you just Google my name and go where I have over 100 talks now. In fact, I think it's about...
Is it Teresa for
Yoga? I can't get... There's a lot of Teresas.
4 being the number, not...
Yeah, I've done that. I haven't got you.
Not found it?
No.
So if you... I'll just put the YouTube in here.
4.co.uk, is it?
Yeah, so Teresa, the number 4, yoga.co.uk. That should be got in there. But there's all sorts of resources on there. There's and I am in the process at the moment of developing some online courses. This is the area that I seem to be being called to move into, which will be around this sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, sorry, the name of the book by the lady.
What's the name?
Oh, let me put that in here as well.
It's there. Yeah.
Haven't got it.
I'm Susan Neiman. I'm a professor of philosophy and director of the Einstein Forum. And I am honored and excited to welcome you to visit us today. I wish I could be welcoming you to Albert Einstein's house, which we are the caretakers of.
Can't get it.
Right. Well, perhaps we could obviously just do this. Are there any more questions while we're online, or shall we start to wind down the session?
Just very quickly, and thanks again, Teresa, fantastic talk. How do we get to hear about the online courses you're doing, please? How do we get to hear about the online courses that you're doing?
Okay. Send me your email, and I will. I'm good at the courses. I'm not good at the marketing side of things, so I'm still working out how to do that. But if you send me an email, I'll put you on a list. Yeah, like I'm writing a course at the moment called Connecting to Yourself, which is combining science and ancient wisdom teachings as to how, when people have lost their connection to their self, how do they come back to that? And it's quite practical, but also weaves in some of our ancient wisdom teachings. I'm developing a course on learning to meditate, that sort of thing. So send me an email and I can put you on a list and keep you up to date with what I'm doing. Subscribe on my YouTube channel and that will keep you up to date with, there's so many different videos on there now. There'll be, I mean, like I did a talk on light healing, for example. There's a talk on esoteric healing. There's all sorts on there. And that way you can keep up with what I'm doing.
Teresa.
Okay, everybody, I have to close the school now because we've been on for quite a long time. Isabel, if you've got a quick one, I'm going to close the school in about 5 minutes. So if it's just a quick one, that's fine.
It's to say thank you so much, because it's so inspirational. Everybody needs to hear you and listen to your word. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And please let me echo those words. It was a truly fascinating talk, and it covered so much ground and linked so many different things together.